put hot air out. The ducts that heat the city buildings, state buildings, come out right underneath those ledges. So when it's very cold, it's a warm place to sleep, warmer than under the bridge, and it's also safe because there's police presence constantly. And if you're under the bridge, it's a good place to get robbed, beaten, and raped, and that happens. Well, the governor got tired of seeing these folks. Actually, the mayor got tired of seeing them and said, they got to go. And then we sort of came in, set up an encampment.
It was actually, I think, originally it was a judge.
Right.
The courthouse is right there. Who was basically embarrassed that the jurors would have to see that going into court every morning.
So rather than dealing with the problem, they just said, we're just going to evict these people and make them disappear. No alternative. You push them deeper into the cracks of the city, right? It's the same thing that they did with the park that we were occupying 10 years ago, when they passed an ordinance that said you can't be here after 11. It was not to, it was just to homeless-proof the park. It wasn't to actually like deal with the issue. So we got this issue of the task force. They house up to 1,000 people on freezing nights, and there's no charge to go there. Like a lot of people don't know, homeless shelters actually cost money now. They might be cheap, like $7 a night. They actually cost money. Task force is free, and they take anybody. So is it a little bit of a nightmare sometimes over there? Absolutely. They've been defunded by about $20 million over the last 15 years because the city has tried to, threaten their funders, intimidate their funders, and they've also corralled all the drug dealing activity to that block, right? And you can't tell me that the police can't take care of all that drug dealing when they can spend $300,000 on one night of policing a bunch of nonviolent campers in the park, right? And have helicopters and horses and riot gear and all this stuff to get a bunch of we'll get to that. So yeah, I mean this is like indicative of the crisis of priority. So the hip hop festival was like one of our it was the excuse that Kasim Reed used to get us out of the park. He said things like that the hip hop crowd was unsafe. The way that he put it was it's like this hip hop festival was going to bring out an element of craziness, and we would just end up eating each other and be just crazy.
It was actually something that had been pre-scheduled.
Yeah.
Way before we got into the park, since summer before, they had paid a lot of money for their permits, and then once we were in the park, they actually reached out. We made the connection, and they were supportive of the cause.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Let's join forces on this instead of kicking us out of the park." And, the city, I think, took that as a threat, and I think it actually just saw online the other day that the hip hop festival is now rescheduled for March. So I'd like to see if they get messed with without Occupy Atlanta involved.
Right. Yeah.
They lost a lot of money, unfortunately, as well. They had planned. The city ran off. They threatened to arrest their vendors.
It was pretty intense. Like they never got the permit pulled to have a generator out there. So when the generator pulled up in the morning for the hip hop festival, 2 lieutenants got behind him and said, "You need to leave now. We're not going to let you unload." They had the permit in their hands. They said, "You don't leave now, we're going to arrest you." And so they left. And so we smuggled our own generator in a mail bag, and we set it up. It's a generator that you would buy at Home Depot. It's a generator that you would see at any Falcons game. I mean, you'd see dozens of these at a Falcons game. This is not some sort of highly dangerous thing, But the mayor made it out to be this combustible machine, and that was going to blow up at any minute. That you needed to send a strike force in to end this threat. And when they came in, Occupy Atlanta just surrounded the generator and linked arms and said, it's fine, take the generator, you have to take us too, and they backed off. But the next day, Kasim Reed had this big press conference, and he said Occupy Atlanta was laying bodies on this combustible machine that could have blown up any minute, and the hip hop crowd was dangerous, and it was totally over the top. But this is one of his big excuses. The rally was, it was like a really laid back, chill, fun day. It was like positive hip hop, African Bambaataa was out there. It was like a totally awesome vibe.
But that was kind of the beginning of the mayor deciding that he wanted us out of the park, so which leads us to eviction night. And you know, like Tim was saying, and I think people have this question about why this focus on the police, which I think you see in some cities. For me, it's not a focus on the police at all, but I will say that, you know, you grow up in America being told that you have this First Amendment right to peacefully assemble, and just the sheer amount of force and presence that is used to evict people, nonviolent, peaceful protesters from parks. You know, here in Atlanta, so we have some pictures of the horse, got, you know, the riot police. I mean, that's really scary. You know, it's a really, really frightening thing when you're just sitting down in a park to see that level of, you know, gear on someone. It makes you think, like, why did they think they would need that?
Especially when we're like, you know, totally nonviolent, and you know, the fact is that the ordinance that they used to push us out was about 10 years old, and it was created to take away the eyesore of homeless people, right? Not to like help homeless people out, just to make them, push them away farther out of the park after 11 o'clock. But I mean, this little homeless proofing ordinance should not trump the First and Second Amendment, right? I mean, the First and Second Amendment are 24/7, right? They don't end at 11, you know? Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly doesn't end at, you know, 10:59. It is a 24-hour protection of democracy.
And it's, you know, I think it really shows people sort of the sort of pushback that you get when you question sort of, you know, the powers that be. I know, like, we've done I noticed recently, like the mayor of Atlanta, for example, he receives donations from many of the people that we have held very public protests against, like the Koch brothers, like Home Depot. So I'm sure that, you know, his campaign financiers don't like to see it. Kind of exemplifies the way that money is more important in politics than.
You said something about Home Depot. Can you give us a slight bit of detail as to Home Depot's part?
We did a demonstration at Home Depot back in November, I think, that was in solidarity of labor. Home Depot spends a lot of money, and they're very, very anti-union. They show all of their employees this, like, ridiculous anti-union video that I've
Poorly
actually seen.
produced.
It's just really funny. But yeah, they spend a lot of effort in trying to discredit unions and bust them up and don't let their employees join them. So, but they're one of the, I think, more powerful entities here in the city of Atlanta.
I have a question that would coincide with what you're saying now. What's going on here with you is no different than what went on with Martin Luther King. So, you know, the hosing and the dogs and the cops and everything. So it's to be expected. That's a statement I want to know. I have no special love for the mayor, but he's handicapped as far as I'm concerned. Either maybe as far as die, you know, it could go that far. So the forces in Atlanta so strong, or wherever, you know, government forces, and I don't think he has any thought for himself. What he does is what he's told.
And that's exactly
yes,
why I brought up
just
Home Depot.
Yeah, the representative.
I think from the mayor all the way up to the president, I think, like,
yes.
you see that
yes.
the politicians, and not all of them, but a lot of them, they're just sort of doing the bidding for the people that are paying for their campaigns. So that's why, like I said, I have no personal grievances against
Yeah.
married. If it hadn't been him, it would have been somebody else.
Somebody else, right.
You know, again, so we were sitting in a circle. Just dwell on it. There's really, you know, there's also helicopters, lights.
Right,
and
right. And one of the discussions that
really-
we've had a lot of times, like we recently have been doing a lot of work in Vine City. I don't know if anybody's familiar, like been to the Bluffs before, or we were talking about
Came to
the
the
drug
church.
dealing area at Peachtree and Pine. Like with one day of what, if they took half of what they put on us in one day, they could go in and just sweep out an area and like take care of it. But the fact is they don't. You know, this is another like exemplification of like this crisis of priority, where we're willing to spend, you know, close to $500,000 on a Hollywood production to put a bunch of like non-violent protesters out of a park, but we can't spend a fraction of that to fix up the most underserved community in the whole downtown area.
So is that because it's not so much the priority, but it's the plan? I mean, is it evil, if playing devil's advocate, is it evil to say that that is their intended plan from the beginning?
Well, some would say that that's true. You know, I mean, the city, you know, the city planners, and they have 5 years, they have 1 year, they have 5-year, 10-year, and then they have a 25-year thing that a lot of cities call a super plan. And Vine City and English Avenue are certainly part of that super plan, like pushing the poor folks out, putting a new dome, putting a new open air stadium in, a $56 million MIMS park right in the heart of English Avenue. Prince Charles has already bought property there. So I mean, yeah, this is certainly one could say, is this by design? You know, more images of us being arrested. There's a lot that went on in this period of time. One of the things we did a 24-hour reoccupation at the King Center, and so that's right outside the Gandhi statue. And the police kind of came in too and tried to like evict us from there. It was like we're, you know, do you want to have the images of us being dragged out of the Center for Nonviolence around the Gandhi statue? Is that what you want? Because that's what we want, you know. And so they were like, all right, okay. They backed off. But they had the helicopters, the spotlights.
And that's private property.
It's not federal.
It's actually federal property.
It's a park. It's a national park. So this is we reoccupied the park several nights. This was one night where we decided, instead of having a bunch of 50-something people, the first night we got evicted, 52 of us, Shab and myself included, got arrested in an act of civil disobedience. We just sat there and got dragged off. On this night we decided that we wanted to try just having one person getting arrested, and to show how many resources would be used to arrest one person. So this is Bailey being arrested. It's that same night.
It's the same night. They had just as many, you know, the same sort of force out there.
Yeah.
The riot police. And again, like I said, it's terrifying. Like when you're out there and you see that, really scary.
That's what they want anyway.
And they started doing this surge strategy where they would just walk down the street and then they'd surge and grab people. And that night I think they arrested 17 folks.
The girl right here that they're trying to pull out actually is, she's a journalist for Creative Loafing. She's trying to take pictures. And I don't know if you guys heard that somebody that same night from The Signal, one of your reporters from The Signal was arrested as well. Some
And
guy
there was a professor
literally just
arrested
happened
as
to be
well.
walking out of a restaurant and just got snatched up. And yeah, the professor from the school was arrested. So it was very much just a snatch and grab.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you know what the charges were?
What were the
For
charges?
the most part, it
Obstruction
was-
of traffic, city ordinance 150266.
But the funny thing was, is as soon as they got down there, they closed the street. Like they had
They
a
were
line of
blocking
like
traffic.
the horse cops and motorcycles. So the street was closed already by them. So
Well, the only reason we were in the street is because we couldn't be in the park. And they kept hurting us. One way they would push us one way, and then we would go another way, and they trapped us really. So.
There's a lot of people that were arrested that night that did not intend to be arrested. And like Shab said, there's one person that just Just wrong place, wrong time. Didn't
Yeah,
even know what
no
Occupy
idea.
Atlanta was.
He had no idea. But luckily, like, his brother happened to see him on the news and get down there.
Yeah.
But, yeah,